What's going on, guys? Danny here from Metal Couch, bringing you an album review today. Today we are going to be looking at the third re-release in Septic Flesh's discography by Season of Mist, and that would be the Ophidian Wheel. Now, going through this discography has been quite an experience for me, as along with Septic. This is an album I have not really paid that much attention to, or even visited for that matter. And what a perfect opportunity then for them to put this shiny new case in my face and then have me listen to it. So, the Ophidian Wheel. Let me set this up for you real quick. Septic, production-wise, was pretty bad. The guitars lacked any form of power, the drum machine was annoying, and the synthesizers sound incredibly dated. Ophidian Wheel decides, what can we do to make this album better? Well, they improve the drum machine, they improve the synths, and they improve the guitar sound. The guitar sound is definitely going more towards what you would find in modern Septic Flesh, especially from A Fallen Temple, which is going to be the next re-release. The guitar sound in this is vastly improved, just the entire production in general. It's improved so much to the point that it leads me to my #1 problem with this album, and that's when you go through the track listing, if you have a time code next to each track, you may notice that some tracks are less than 2 minutes or 50 seconds long, and that is because during this album you have random spurts of opera. Now, for those of you who are aware of what Septic Flesh do and what other members do, they have their own separate group that they formed after this album, I believe, called Chaos Star, where they do a whole bunch of operatic music. Before then, they really didn't have a way to put that type of music out there. They didn't really have the funding, I guess, to make this group. So they decided to put in this album with tracks 5, 7, and 11 random bits of opera. It takes away from the pace of the album. It really does. Let me give you an example. The first 4 tracks actually on this album, well, 3 out of 4, are really good. Opening up with The Future Belongs to the Brave is an awesome track. The title track, Ophidian Wheel, is probably one of the more modern-sounding Septic Flesh songs. Definitely something that I could see them playing live today, even though I'm not sure if they do. Phallic Litanies is an okay track. You can pass over that one. It's nothing really there to write home about. Razor Blades of Guilt is a mainstay in their live lineup, and for good reason. It's a damn good song. Then you get to track 5, Tartarus, which is your first bit of opera. This one is the longest one. It lasts for around 2 minutes, and it completely breaks the pace of this massive setup of heaviness. And then Tartarus concludes, and then you get another really heavy track on the topmost step of the earth, only to be broken up by more opera with Microcosmos. Starting to see a pattern here. If we get too heavy, we got to bring the people down a little bit with some opera, because apparently they can't handle the heaviness. Geometry and Static is probably my favorite track on this album, with the fact that it sounds the most like my favorite album from Septic Flesh, Sumerian Demons. And it's really fast-paced, and it has an awesome solo in it, too. And Shamanic Rite and Heaven Below close out the album when it comes to heavy material. Then you have Enchantment, a little bit more synthesizer, operatic way to close out the album. So now with the re-releases have been coming with bonus content. Mystic Places had the entire Temple of the Lost Race EP. Septic had live songs to go with it, which I was all for. I love it when they release live tracks, especially in that quality, because finding live tracks from this band is really hard to find, at least in a decent quality. This album, it decides to give you alternate mixes of The Future Belongs to the Brave, the title track, and On the Topmost Step of the Earth, which personally, after comparing them to the different mixes that are available, these sound almost identical to the original mixes that you would find on the original pressing of the album. So in the bonus content department, this album is incredibly lacking. I'm almost disappointed with the fact that they would choose something like this. I mean, at least throw in a live track or something like that, or maybe a demo. A demo would be fucking awesome. But with this album, you know, they shortchange you in the bonus department. Now, I talk a lot of shit about the opera sections and the fact of the pace of the album, but overall, for the tracks that are there, this is a pretty decent album. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I would probably give it a 6.5 or a 7. I mean, yeah, the opera stuff really breaks up the action, and it's a really, really awkward change of pace. But then you also have tracks like the title track and Geometry and Static. Hell, even the opening track, The Future Belongs to the Brave. You really do have some golden material here from this band. Now, as I said before with Esceptron, if you're a new person, if you're new looking at this band, I do not recommend that you listen to this album right off the bat. If you want to get into this band, I highly recommend looking at Sumerian Demons, Communion, or even their latest outing, The Great Mass. If you like those 3 albums, then go back. Even for hell, I would even recommend that a new person listen to Mystic Places of Dawn. If you like Mystic Places of Dawn, you will probably like this album, but you have to really be a die-hard fan to even find some light of material in Esceptron. I don't recommend anybody listen to Esceptron, really. But this album, other than those random opera breaks, is pretty good. So I think that warrants probably a 7 out of 10. Getting shortchanged on the bonus tracks is kind of a bummer, especially since that was the primary reason I was looking forward to these re-releases, because the remastering is nothing more than a gain boost. It's really disappointing. I mean, I look at some of these tracks and I put them in Audacity and I look at the levels and they're borderline clipping. It's getting really, really bad. They're brick-walled all to hell, and I don't really like it when that happens. It's kind of pointless to me that you would want to have them that loud and almost to the point where it's distorted. So anyway, I'm going to give this album a 7 out of 10. If you've heard the 4 albums that I mentioned before that I recommend people listen to before getting into this band, sure, check out Ophidian Wheel. It's definitely one of the strongest of their earlier works. Personally, I can't wait for A Fallen Temple to drop, because that one has different versions of classic tracks that were found on Mystic Places, like Temple of the Lost Race on A Fallen Temple is fucking amazing. It's almost like an entirely different song. So with that, a 7 out of 10. Danny here from Metal Couch, signing off.